you can go home safe at the end. All right, so maybe to get started, so both of you spoke in previous events we organized in June. You spoke in the San Francisco event, you spoke in the New York event, and both of your experiences were really interesting, and that's why we have you back in the second round. But for many of the participants today, probably they don't know who you are and what you do. So let's get started maybe with Natasha. If you can introduce your role at Logitech and how long you've been working.
Yeah.
Better with microphone.
So I had corporate development at Logitech. It's a pretty small team. There's 3 of us. We actually do strategy and corporate development. So I've been with Logitech for 9 years. Prior to Logitech, I was at Bain & Company doing strategy consulting. And prior to business school, I was doing M&A for middle market companies. So in our group, it's actually interesting because we combine both strategy and corporate development. So both of my previous experiences combined, and it's actually, I think it does help a lot with the process, just making sure that a lot of our acquisition targets actually align with the overall corporate strategy.
I'm Todd, Neville, IBM. So I'm a member of a very large at-scale M&A organization, so sometimes it's beneficial to talk about kind of where do I sit in that organization. I've worked in the formal corporate development organization, which in IBM is very transaction-centric. If you work with an investment bank, that's a lot more of the role of the formal corp dev organization. There's 2 other functions on either side of that, is an integration team and what we call a corporate business development team. The early side of that stage is where I'm working currently, although I've worked at all those other teams over a career. So I manage the M&A process for many of the growth components of IBM's portfolio. So this involves our blockchain business, our AI and machine learning business, our financial services business, our healthcare business, and a few others.
So what I also realized talking to a couple of people, that depending on the company, some teams are really large, some teams are really small. Some companies are able to do really large transactions in the billions, and some others specialize in like smaller deals. So could you give us kind of some idea of kind of the range of size of deals you do and the frequency of deals, like per year or like recently, in last year, for instance?
So the smallest one was about a 2-person company in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And the largest one, I think you know what that is.
Yeah.
So, but it's everything in between, and they're all different from each other. And the frequency is also, I think they tend to come in spurts.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the underlying reason, but we tend to go and do 5 or 10 of them, and then do none for a year or so, and then do another spurt of them. And
is it seasonal?
Yeah, I've often been asked kind of what's the driver of some of those things, and my best answer is it's often personality dependent. It's there's usually a small set of leaders that are making a decision of how they want to grow their business, and they have a need to move forward in an inorganic manner. And it's often ones that have done some form of M&A in their career before, and so they're experienced with it, and they're often the champions of that deal, and that really helps to push it forward. When it is a deal that is the right thing to do, but it's maybe a business leader that hasn't done them before, or is more tentative, or is also not sure that that's the direction they want to go. Those tend to be the ones that, my zombie deals that sit there for a year and try and figure out, is that really something we're going to do or not?
Okay, so prior experience with M&As drive more acquisitions.
It's not a rule, but I've seen that several times. If you have a very strong sponsor who understands the deal, knows they want to do the deal, and can eloquently build consensus that that's the right thing for the company to do overall, that's probably the biggest indicator of whether we're going to move forward or not.
And when you mention the sponsor, that would be from a business unit rather than somebody in corp dev role?
Yeah, at a large company like IBM, it's typically a P&L owner who is the sponsor, of which there's many. We have many businesses inside IBM, but they're not the decision maker. They're just a key component of that decision process.
Okay. How does that compare with Logitech?
Probably very similar, maybe slight variation, but I mean, not similar in range, by the way. Tell
us a bit more about the range.
As an example, last year we did 3 very small acquisitions, and it's under 10 people. And then we did one larger one, which was called Aster Gaming, and it was $85 million purchase price. This year is probably similar. We've done a couple of small investments to date, and then we acquired Blue Microphones for $120 million. So we would like to do at least 2 sizable acquisitions a year, but we actually it's not 100% success rate. So I would say 1 or 2 a year of size, and then maybe like 2 or 3 very small acquisitions, like technology type plays. I guess.
Yeah, that was the question. Maybe to get a sense of the audience as well. So there's a lot of you in Corp Dev. So who is in a Corp Dev team where in the entire company there's less than 5 people? Less than 5 people in Corp Dev in the entire company. Okay. Between 5 and 20? Nobody between 5 and 20 as a Corp Dev team in the company? Oh, okay. Above 20 people in Corp Dev? Okay, it's kind of a mixed group. Okay. And who has worked on deals over $100 million? Okay. Reasonably serious here. But it's also really interesting to see that, obviously Logitech is not as big as a Facebook, as a Google. And it's really interesting to see that you do multiple deals of a smaller size, which is, so how different is it for you to do small deals versus larger deals in terms of due diligence efforts, not just the cash, but like, is that the same effort? Is it a lot easier, or is it more of a mess, actually?
We often say that it takes just as much time sometimes to do a small deal than a large deal, and to be honest, sometimes small deals that even become more challenging because you often have 1 or 2 people for whom every single term matters so much. So then you end up in more details than you probably would on the larger acquisitions. But yeah, the scope is obviously still smaller. You probably negotiate longer over certain things, but the scope tends to be smaller. The diligence tends to be much smaller because for us, they tend to be more technology ingredients. So we're looking for something very specific in that case. So we're validating basically that it's there. Versus in a business, the scope of diligence is a lot broader. So, yeah.
Okay, Todd, how about you?
I definitely agree. I think the level of effort doesn't correspond to the size of the transaction, and the very small deals can be just as much or more work than the large deals. And I've seen, like I said, the 2-person company where I most often work is in the sweet spots like 100 million to 500 million kind of range, and that's a company that is probably on GAAP accounting, probably has